Hello and welcome back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel for another AFL preview for the 2023 season. I'm John O'Barrock and with me today is Brandon Patan and Callan Cummins previewing the Carlton Football Club after such an agonising end to the season last year. The Blues are back for 2023 and they are seeking revenge. Brandon, it was such a devastating end to the Blues season last year, but in a way they almost did everything you could have wanted for them in the first year under a new coach, aside from making finals.
100%. I think early in the year, you could see the progress. Like Carlton were top four most of the first half of the year, and then the progress was really there, and they just sort of dipped off at the end. So I think this year is going to be a big year for them for sure.
And injuries played a massive role in that, of course. Smashed early by COVID and then injuries to just really key players at inopportune times. Saw the wheels fall off a little bit there.
Yeah, it's pretty much as Brandon was saying. It was a really solid first half of the year, and then injuries sort of struck in the middle and later half of the year for the Blues. So they, as long as they can get the injury side of things right, they've been hit a little bit early this year, but to get it right at the right time of the year will really sort of push them for this year.
There have been a couple of injury niggles and concerns that have sort of plagued the Blues in the off-season. Not many additions to the list, though. Took 4 players in the draft. Oliver Holland's coming in as their first pick in the national draft. Lockie Cowan, Jackson Binns, and Harry Lemmy in the national draft. They also brought in Blake Acres through the trade, and that really adds to that outside run and just some more surety and seniority on the wing there, really filling the role that Carlton really rotated quite a few players over 2022, and hopefully bringing in Blake Acres across from Fremantle would be just locking in one side of the field and the wing there.
Yeah, for sure. I think what we've added in guys like Hollands, Cowans, Binns is a lot of versatility, a lot of outside runs, some speed. I think that's what we need definitely outside on the wing. So for sure, all great pickups.
All great pickups indeed. And we saw a lot, Cal, about the way Carlton played last year. A lot of it was really just about, cracking in at the contest and really making teams feel presence that they knew that they were playing Carlton again. But really this year we've sort of seen a lot through some of the snippets that have come out of the club and a lot of the reports that a lot of the work is on that defensive transition and a lot of real game situation and knowledge. And you can really see through the way that they're playing. We'll speak about Zach Williams going down in a moment and how much that potentially hurts. But there's been a real focus on adding the next layer to the game plan, which is really taking the ball forward and continuing to being able to defend the ground.
Yeah, you're right. As you said last year, it was the hard ball winners at the middle. It was Cripps, it was Hewitt getting the hard ball. But now it's sort of moving to the halfbacks. As you said, Zach Williams has gone down. So it goes to the likes of Adam Sard, goes to Nick Newman. If Sam Doherty's been playing a bit of midfield in the preseason, if he switches back to the halfback, just rolling the ball forward, getting progress up the field, it all starts at that halfback line.
Brandon, are you concerned? We've just spoken about Zach Williams. He's unfortunately gone down with the season-ending ACL injury, has been replaced on the list by Hudson O'Keefe, the young ruckman. Sam Phillips, unfortunately, gone down. He can't seem to get his body right. Sam Walsh, we know he's been having back problems for the last little while now. Missed that important round 23 game against Collingwood and just hasn't really been able to get right, although he is improving as every passing session goes by. Is there a concern that there might be a bit of a slow start considering the number of players, although there aren't many, but there are still quite a few players on modified programs, and it might lead to a slow start to the year?
It could potentially be an issue. I think when players start going down in important positions, like you see Zach Williams go down, now you have to find a backup plan there. Could be an issue. If someone like a Wiedering goes down again or something like that, it would be catastrophic. But I think, Carlton definitely need to be careful. And if players like that keep going down, it could be an issue. But for now, I think they're okay.
So we're going to move into the next part of this preview, which is the questionnaire part. It's quick fire questions as with everyone. So how do you judge your club's pre-season? I think the main thing for me is that it's just been a real focus on what comes next. And we've spoken about what Carlton tried to build into season 2020-22. For me, it's what comes now. It's what comes next. What's the next part of the Voss game plan? How many play in that key defensive setup we saw at the start of last year, and all throughout last year, he tried to play the three talls down back in the Twin Towers up forward with Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. How does that work now if Mitch McGovern can stay fit, if a Caleb Marchbank can stay fit, Jake Boydering's your number one, and Lewis Young, probably not thought of at the start of the year last year, but he's come in and almost cemented himself as that number two key defender. So how do they play? And then how do they get the run off half back? Is it a Nick Newman? Is it an Adam Sard? How quickly can they go and how quickly can they defend the ground? So I think that's mainly been the focus point, and something that I think you and everyone else would agree would just be just a lot of working on the general skill and the general disposal and the decision-making, particularly in the heat of battle.
Yeah, exactly right. It's sort of going back to the half-back sort of thing. It's quite a tall back line the Blues have got. As you said, they've got McGovern, who's probably a key back, playing it on a half-back flank. It is a tall back line, and it all starts with the ball use sort of out of that half-back line. If it's inefficient, you're only getting the wing position, and it's not going anywhere. It's coming back over your head for a goal. So the Blues, if they can get the ball use out of the half-back, getting to their good ball users like Doherty and Sard, then it's a good foundation.
Yeah, and on that point as well, I think consistency is so key, and I'll keep talking about it. I think what we saw from the Blues in the second half was a drop-off in form, and I think if they can maintain the good patches of form, they'll be in good stead towards the end of the year.
Lots of talk as well about the midfield and the midfield rotation and a lot of the depth that's come in there. We saw Hewitt and Adam Chera come in during the trade last season. Matthew Kennedy really elevated his game, and Will Setterfield left the club to go to Essendon probably for a bit more opportunity, which leaves the likes of Paddy Dow and Jack Carroll waiting in the wings for the opportunity. So there are a couple of players who are yet to really prove themselves at AFL level, but we keep talking about this vaunted midfield. And as you said, Brandon, if one of the top liners in Shero, who spent some time on the sidelines last year, as well as George Hewitt, goes down, then these guys will have to come in and fill the void.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so important having that depth for a team like Carlton, because we've got so many top liners up there. And if one of them goes down, someone has to fill the void, like you said. So, yeah, that'll be very important as well.
So many top liners, so many fantastic choices for fantasy or super coach. Cal, if you're the coach and you have to pick a Carlton player, because the rule is you have to have at least one Carlton player in your side, who's one that your team cannot live without?
I think it's pretty hard to go past Sam Doherty. He was by far the highest scoring defender from last season. I think it was in the 110s or something like that on AFL Fantasy. He's just unbelievable. And if he gets more midfield minutes this season, who knows what he can achieve.
Yeah, I completely echo that. Sam Doherty is going to be the first defender in my team for sure. He's dominant off half-back as it is. And with the injury of Walshy, likely seeing him coming inside earlier in the year, I think he can have the same impact in midfield, and it's going to be brilliant to see.
Yeah, I agree with you both with Sam Doherty, but I think if you're going to go for a bit of a player of difference, because I think a lot of people will be picking Sam Doherty because he is that good. But I think if you have a smoky, someone like a Matthew Kennedy who's really cemented himself in Carlton's best 23, he plays a lot of midfield minutes, he wins a lot of hard ball, and has shown in recent years that he can push forward and kick a goal. I think he's a very good player of difference that not many people will have. So coaches, maybe as a late defensive option, he definitely wouldn't be a primo, but is definitely someone that you could consider. So we've spoken a lot about what Carlton did really, really well throughout season 22 and where it kind of dropped off and what's the focus been for 2023. But what's one change that really needs to be made to the Blues if they are going to go the extra mile and succeed in 2023?
Yeah, for me, I think transition football is the key. It's where the best teams hurt the other teams the most. Capitalize on mistakes, put the hurt on them instantly, and I think that's where the Blues need to work on the most. If they can improve that facet of their game, it's a massive step, and it's something that we saw flashes of last year, so they just have to nail that down.
Personally, I would go with getting a cheap goal against the run of play. Often for the Blues in previous years, they've sort of allowed goals and pulling goals upon goal. It's been a common trend. But if the Blues can get a goal in between maybe a set of two or three, sort of stop the momentum, then they can get the game back on their terms and reset from there.
I think for me, it's as simple as you just want to see the growth in the emotional maturity of the group. I think for some of those games, particularly late in the season, because it was such a young group that hadn't really experienced such high stakes games like the Melbourne game before and like the Collingwood game before, and even the games a bit early in the year, like the Adelaide game, or not giving up such a big lead against North Melbourne and really burying the Crows in the early season game. I think one thing that your hopes change, that as much as round 23 hurt the boys and you want them to move past it because it is a new year, you want to see that emotional growth and maturity so they know how to deal with that situation a bit better. And you could see how much the senior players were hurting and how much it would have cut the younger players as well who were on the field that day. And I just really, really hope that, as well as adding to the game plan, they've done a lot of work of just growing and letting those experiences really drive you on and drive you forward, because we'll come to predictions a little bit later, but they're probably going to be around that same mark again, fighting for one of those 5 to 8 spots, I think, maybe. And their ceiling is as high as anyone. So for me, I think it's going to come down to the emotional maturity of the playing group. The talent's definitely there, no question. It's all about how can they really absorb everything that has happened to them in the last 2 seasons, really, and put that all together with the list that they've got. So speaking of that, transitioning, 2023, always big year for any football club, but big year for some individuals as well. Callan, it is a big year for who?
A big year. I feel like it could be an even bigger year for Patrick Cripps. I mean, coming off the back of what he did last year, it was basically flawless. I feel like he could go to another level. Who knows what that could be, but I feel like he can do it again.
Yeah, for me, I think it's Jacob Wiedering. I mean, before his injury last year, he was almost nailed on All-Australian. And then he had the injury and he sort of dipped a little bit, and you saw he wasn't really recapturing that form. And in terms of Carlton's progression overall, he's so important to that. And if he can recapture that form, it's going to be so massive for the Blues this year.
I think I love both of those calls. And I think there's a player on Carlton's list that's been there for a while that hasn't really delivered to his full potential. And I think it's a massive year for Jack Martin in the sense that Carlton are a much better team when he's out on the field. We saw it in the round 22 game against Melbourne. His 3 goals almost single-handedly almost got Carlton over the line. And I don't think there's another player on Carlton's list, Charlie Curnow aside, that can kick 3 goals in about 5 minutes as Jack Martin can with the talent that he possesses. So it's a big year for him. He's in the second last year of a really, really big and lucrative contract and hasn't really delivered or hasn't really stayed on the park much to deliver. So Carlton are a better side when he's up and going. He's had a few little niggles here and there. Again, one of those players that has been on a modified program. So I think if Carlton really want to do anything this year, it's just try find the perfect role for Jack Martin to make sure that he is executing and he is on song delivering for this team almost every week, because they are a much better team with him in it. So we've spoken about who it's a big year for. Cal, which Carlton players going to announce themselves this year and break out?
Not to say that he had a bad year last year. It was a good year last year, but I feel like Adam Cherr's ready to go to that next level. He's had 1 year at the club to settle himself in, to get himself prepared. And I feel like he's modified his game to the way Carlton would like it. And I feel like he's ready for a massive year this year.
Yeah, I've kind of cheated and I've gone for 2. And similarly, Carl, it's not that they had a bad year last year, but I think Carlton have such a sensational key forward combo in Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. And I think Jesse Motlop and Corey Durden, if they can combine this year, pitch in for 25 to 30 goals each, they're going to be so good this year and they have immense potential. And I think if they can take it to the next level, again, it's going to be so important for the Blues as a whole.
Yeah, both of the work at Charlie and Harry's feet, and Corey Durden's actually been doing a bit of training up the ground and pinch hitting in the big full time. I'm with you. I'm a real big fan of what Jesse Motlop can do. We saw a real glimpse of it last year. Sort of found his way into Michael Voss's side, and then really based on his output, just demanded to be selected almost every week. Getting those games in his third quarter against Collingwood in round 23 was a real wow. Look at what this guy can do. So a full preseason, hasn't missed a beat. Really looking good and really looking to take his game to another level. Brandon, a headline you will see this year coming out of the Carlton Football Club.
I've gone with back-to-back lightning strikes twice as Cripps takes home Charlie. I think Cripps just, if we're expecting Carlton to progress the way we're all expecting them to this year, Cripps is going to be at the forefront. And we saw what he did last year. And if he has a full season, there is absolutely no reason he can't do it again.
I like it. Cal?
Similar to Stengel from last year at the Cats, I feel like Blake Acres could be the value recruit of the year. Maybe not the best player of the recruits. I think there might be Tim Taranto is probably a standout off the top of my head, but I feel like Blake Acres for a third round pick is great value, and I think he could be that value pick of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one that I'm going for, I think I might have said it last year too, but I think the headline you will see is "It's about damn time Jacob Wiedering finally gets his blazer." He was he was about as rusted.
Has to happen.
He was about as rusted on as you can be last year until he decided to knock Jordan De Goey into next week and came off second best and wasn't the same. Ever since then, he missed out on selection narrowly in both 2021 and 2020. I just feel like this is the year for Jacob, and there are not many better one-on-one key defenders in the comp. Maybe behind maybe two ahead of him, but I just reckon he's rusted on. And if he plays 22 games, I don't think there will be many people stopping him. Almost through this prediction video for the Carlton Football Club. But Cal, what is one game that is must see on the calendar for Carlton?
I think every fan will be watching round one, game one against the Tigers back on the opening night of the season on that Thursday night. It's considering what the Blues did last year, breaking a 10 or 11 year drought. I think they're back again, ready to sort of break the hearts of the Tigers on the first game of the season.
Yeah, always a good one. For me, it's round 10, Carlton Collingwood. For one, it's a rivalry game. But this year, it's also a good indication of progress. The Blues lost to them twice last year. It's not something that they can ever accept. So they need to beat them twice this year, and it starts in round 10.
Yeah, I like both of those games, and there's certainly been some spice added to the Carlton Collingwood rivalry again. I think for me, it's a couple of weeks before. It's round 8 at Marvel Stadium on a Friday night against the Brisbane Lions. There's a lot of hype about the Blues. There's a lot of hype against the Brisbane Lions, and we saw just how badly the Blues were beaten on the Lions' home deck late in the season when they were really limping towards the line. And for me, this is a big game for Carlton against another heavyweight contender on their home ground in front of the bright lights. It's a real test to see where Carlton are at against one of the sides that many people are tipping for the premiership. And if you beat another heavyweight team that's in your weight class, you're legit. So that for me is one that I'll definitely be keeping an eye on. Right, we've spoken a lot about what you might see, what might happen, but let's talk. Let's be real now, Brandon. Minimal expectations for the Carlton this year. It has to be finals or bust, right?
Yeah, I think for Carlton fans, even from a sanity point of view, it has to be finals. I think Carlton are good enough to win a final at the very least, but if they don't make it, it's just an enormous failure. So yeah, make finals.
Last year I would have been saying the same thing, but considering how the Blues played last year, it was maybe a 50-50. But this year it's 100%. It's if you finish ninth, that's a fail.
Mm-hmm. I was of the belief that Carlton was certainly good enough last year to make the finals, but might not make it because there were a few teams ahead of them. And it proved to be the case, not saying that I was actively barracking for them to miss the finals. It's just there were a few teams ahead of them. And considering how well Carlton started out of the gates, then you could adjust your expectations mid-season, which a lot of people certainly did. And for them to fall just short, of course, there'd be minimum expectations would be to make it and probably win one or two, depending on how well they go. I certainly think they are capable of winning a final, but it'll come down to luck. It'll come down to how well you're playing and how well things are going to go. So we're saying that we've done all the minimal expectations. Brando, where will Carlton finish on the ladder in 2023?
I would probably lean towards 5th or 6th in a home final. I'll say 5th.
I had a 6th and similar to Brando winning that home final. Yeah.
I am the same as you, Cal. I had a 6 playing a home final at the MCG. And I honestly believe if Carlton can get fit and stay fit, they can make a preliminary final and go on a magical run. But it is all there to be seen. And it is an exciting season ahead for the Blues. Plenty of hype coming out of Princes Park. Cal and Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel and stay across for plenty more AFL previews.